Hello, eighth grade algebra. As I mentioned, I would be gone today. You guys have a phenomenal sub, and you guys are going to learn a lot. I spent some time last night making this video. Um, Actually, making the video during third hour. The video didn't work. My mic broke, and it's actually been a kind of a rough day. But it's great now because we're headed to True Team Meet in Winona. So here you are. You should have this sheet. I believe that your substitute handed it out to you. This is an overview of what we covered in 7.1. You're going to hand this into the lower left-hand corner box when you were done. And you also have an assignment that was given to you on Friday. That is due tomorrow. Please make sure that you have that ready to go. Okay. So we're going to start basic today, and we will advance in our work. We start basic with our exponent properties. It says expand the following, then simplify. So to expand 2 to the third means to write it as 2 times 2 times 2. And 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So that is the simplifying of that expression. Number 2 is a common problem for people to get incorrect. Some people want to write -3 times -3. But that is not correct because the negative is not being squared. It's not included. So it's 3 times 3, and you attach the negative out front. So 3 times 3 is 9, times the negative would be a -9. Next one is a fraction. You guys are really good at fractions. We take 3/2 and we multiply out 4 times. And as you multiply, you remember that multiplying fractions, you multiply the tops. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times 3 is 81. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. 10 to the fourth. 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. A grand total of 10 times 10 is 100, times 10 is 1,000, times 10 is 10,000. Number 5 is similar to number 2 in that there is a negative. The difference is that the negative is being included with the power. So I take -1/4 and I multiply that by -1/4. A negative times a negative is a positive. And 1 times 1 is 1, 4 times 4 is 16, so the answer is 1/16. Then we have 2 to the 7th. 2 to the 7th would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. Excellent. Easy when Mr. Gens does it on the board. More challenging when we try it on our own. I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes to give you an opportunity to try these problems on your own. Ready, set, go. times 5 times 5, which is 25 times 5 or 125. Negative 7 squared will be negative 7 times 7. The negative is on the outside, so we don't square the negative. We get negative 49. Here the negative is on the inside, so negative 1 half times negative 1 half times negative 1 half times negative 1 half. A negative times a negative times a negative times a negative will become a positive. And 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 16. 10 to the 6th. 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. That's going to be 1 million. Negative 5 to the 3rd. The negative is being included, so I need to include that as I multiply. A negative times a negative times a negative is a negative. 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 more is 125. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 more is 27. And finally, 2 to the 8th. 2 times 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 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, and 256. I hope you got those all correct and that you're feeling good about your work so far. Let's flip it over to the next page and let us now talk about the zero exponent property, and that is if you take anything and raise it to the 0 power, you get 1. And so you can see that here you have 2 to the 0 power, which will be 1. But 14 is different because the negative is not being taken to the 0 power, so therefore it is negative 1. 15, the negative is being taken to the 0 power, so the answer is 1. 16, it's a variable, but that doesn't matter. Anything to the 0 power is 1. 17, the negative is included in the expression, so anything to the 0 power, again, is 1. And 18, you have the negative on the outside, so it would be t to the 0 is 1, and then make it negative. So those are our results. What I'd like you to do is you're just going to take a minute. These go a little bit quicker. Take a minute and see if you can do problems 19 through 24. Ready, set, go. Power is 1. Anything to 0 power is 1. The negative is on the inside. Here the negative is on the outside, so it's negative 1. Again, the negative is on the outside. It is negative 1. And again, the negative is not being taken to 0 power. It is negative 1. So the ones on top are all positive 1. The ones on the bottom are all negative 1. And I know that you guys got that right because you're an extremely intelligent group and you've been focusing. Now my phone is ringing. I will be back to you in a second. That's amazing. Okay, amazing day. We've got the property of negative exponents. So if you see a negative exponent, you move it. So here we have a negative exponent, so we're going to move the 2 down below. So we end up with 1 over 2 to the 1, which is just 1 over 2. Same thing for x to the negative 1. Again, you have a negative exponent, so we're going to move it on down. We have 1 over x. 5 to the negative 2. Again, 5 is being taken negative power, so we're going to move it below, and we get 1 over 5 squared. And what is 5 squared? It is 25. So we get 1 over 25. 28 is very similar. You see 4 is being taken to a negative exponent, so therefore it's 1 over 4 to the third, which is 1 over 4 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 more is 64, so we get 1/64. Next one is different because there's a negative. The negative is not being taken to the negative 2 power, so we'll leave the negative on top, but we will drop the 3 below. And fortunately, because you are super intelligent, you know that 3 squared is 9, so we get negative 1/9. Oh no, look at the last one. So confusing. Really not that bad. You see the negative exponent here, so we're going to move those x's up top. We see the negative x, or the negative 6 there, so we're going to move those b's to the bottom. So we end up with 12 in the top and 8 in the bottom. Now let's see what else we have. The 8 to the third stays up top. The x to the negative 2 comes to the top, becomes x squared. The b to the negative 6 moves to the bottom, it becomes b to the 6th. And y to the 4th stays where it is because there's no negative exponent. Now the cool thing is that we can actually change that because we know 12 over 8 reduces to 3 over 2. You have the a cubed and the x squared in the numerator. You have the b to the 6th, the y to the 4th in the denominator. So we did 6 problems there. We're going to give you 2 minutes. I will watch the time closely. I promise this time. On your mark, get set, go. And time's up. Here we go. 5 to the negative 1 is simply 1 over 5. Negative d to the negative 1. The negative stays up top. The d drops to the denominator. 6 to the negative 2. That would be 1 over 6 squared. 6 squared is 36. So we have 1 over 36. negative 10 to the negative third. The negative is not being taken to the negative third power, so it stays in the numerator. Then 10 drops to the denominator. What is 10 cubed? Well, that would be negative 1 over 10 times 10 times 10, or negative 1 over 1,000. The next one, a little bit different than the other ones we looked at, but because c is being taken negative power, will move up. Because d is being taken negative power, will move down. So it was c cubed over d to the fourth. And finally, one similar to the other one we looked at, you see r is being taken negative power, it's going to move down. N is being taken negative power, so it will move up. So we have 25 in the numerator. We have 10 in the denominator. We have n to the fifth in the numerator, along with s squared. You have m to the third in the denominator, along with r to the seventh. Now, all the exponents are positive, which is what we want, but we will simplify 25 over 10. Both are divisible by 5. We get 5 n to the fifth, s squared divided by 2m cubed r to the seventh. There you go. All right, our last section, we move on to this piece. This is my third time through. You guys don't know because this is the only video you've seen, but I actually recorded this video earlier, but the mic didn't work, it didn't have any sound. So, and then it happened again. So I trust it's working this time, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to it. So here we go, last set. Use the property of negative exponents to simplify the following. This is a little bit different. We have 5 to the negative 2, which you do understand is 1 over 5 squared. And part of what you recognize is that things kind of flip. So many of you understand you get 1 over 25. But what about this one? 2/3 to the negative 2. And what happens is if you have, say, a over b, and it's raised to a negative power, you flip the fraction. So the 2 over 3 to the negative 2, we can simply flip it, and it becomes 3 over 2. But now instead of to the negative 2 power, it's just to the second power. So we can use up the negative by flipping it. Use up the negative by flipping it. And now we have 3 over 2 times 3 over 2. Multiply fractions, 3 over 3, or 3 times 3 is 9, and 2 times 2 is 4, so we get 9/4. If you look at number 39, same thing. We have negative 1/4 to the negative 3 power. So we flip the negative 1/4 to be negative 4 over 1. And we raise it to the third power. Or negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4, which is positive 64. So again, you use up the negative in the exponent by flipping it. So here we have a negative exponent. I will flip the fraction. So it's 3 over 10 cubed, or 3 over 10 times 3 over 10 times 3 over 10. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. Number 41. The negative is on the outside, so I'll leave that negative alone. I'm going to use up the negative on the exponent by flipping it. So I have negative 2 to the fifth. So that means I take 2 to the fifth and then make it negative. Negative 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. What is 2 times 2? 4 times 2, 8, 16, 32. Grand total of negative 32. Finally, our last piece here, we see a lot of negative exponents. We drop this 3 to the negative third down, this 2 to the negative 2 up, this y to the negative fourth up, this b to the negative seventh down. So you can see I will have a 2 to the second in the top and a 3 to the third down below. A to the fourth stays where it is. X to the fifth stays where it is. But the y to the fourth moves to the top, it becomes a positive exponent. B to the seventh moves to the bottom, becomes a positive exponent. I can square the 2 to get 4, a to the fourth, y to the fourth, and I can take 3 to the third to get 27, so x to the fifth, b to the seventh. All right, our last set for you to try. I will set the timer for 2 minutes. You try these. Hopefully you can get them all correct, which I know you can because you're extremely intelligent class and you love math. Ready, set, go. Sounds amazing. That's up to you. What I want is not important. Sorry, 8th grade algebra. You got some kids coming and asking questions. Cal Peterson says, "What's up?" Michael Savicul says, "Hola." Okay, your 2 minutes are up. Here we go. 4 over 3 to the negative 1. I'm going to use up the negative by flipping it to get 3 over 4, and I am done. This is y to the negative 1. That will simplify to 1 over y. The next one, 4 over 5 to the negative 2. I'm going to flip it to get 5 over 4, and then I will square it. So I used up the negative. So 5 over 4 times 5 over 4. And that will give me 25 over 16. For 46, I have negative 2/3 to the negative third power. So I'm going to use up that negative 3/2 to the third power. So it's negative 3/2 times 3/2 times 3/2. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. And 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So I get negative 27 over 8. The next one, 1 over 10 raised to the negative fifth power. I'm going to flip it and make it 10 to the fifth power. That would be 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, or 100,000. And finally, for the last problem, I see a bunch of negative exponents. The m to the negative 1 moves up, s to the negative 4 moves down, 5 to the negative 2 moves up, 4 to the negative 2 moves down. I'm left with 5 squared over 4 squared. R to the 6 stays up there, and m comes up and joins it. N to the 5th stays down, and s to the 4th joins it. And what I can do is I can square the 5 to get 25. I have an r to the 6th m, and in the denominator I have a 16, n to the 5th, s to the 4th. So that takes care of it. 48 problems, folks. It says, again, you're going to take this and turn it in the lower left corner. Your assignment, which you were given, is due Friday. You do have some time left in class to work. Good luck. I hope you do great. See you tomorrow.